What's up, A to Z Sports Live on this Tuesday, talking Titans draft once again. This time, spending a lot of time on second-round draft pick, 38th overall, T'Vondre Sweat, who has been under a lot of microscopes, a very large human being, but has some character issues off the field from his college time at Texas, and then having the DWI arrest right before his 30 visit to the Titans in April during the draft process. The Titans go ahead and make him the 38th overall pick. And Ran Carthon, Titans GM, and head coach Brian Callahan, both on radio yesterday, discussing why they took T'Vondre Sweat at 38 and the research they did about the person and the player after the fact of the issues from his past. So we'll discuss if it was too early or just right to take T'Vondre Sweat at 38. We'll hear from both the GM and the head coach on that to see how that changes our opinion or affects our opinion on this. And then do they miss out on a trade back situation? And then what's your level of concern with his off the field issues? We'll throw back some little PTSD with a former high draft pick by the team that did not pan out because of off the field issues. And it is throwing shade here on this Tuesday to wrap up the show. Zach, welcome in. Let's get this thing off and rolling.
Yep, live on a Tuesday. We got a lot to get to as we maneuver through this draft over the weekend, diagnosing it, analyzing it, and giving our opinions, as well as yours in the chat. We are broadcasting live on 3 different platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So we're locked in. Get locked in right there. We will tweet out segment by segment, link by link on our Twitter profile. That's at A to Z Sports. Give us a follow there on Twitter. And make sure you do 3 things on YouTube. YouTube's the best way to take in our live streaming shows. So make sure you subscribe to our channel. Type in A to Z Sports Nashville on YouTube. You'll see the icon, hit the subscribe button, and there you go. The second thing, if you've already subscribed, hit the like button on this particular video. It helps the algorithm. Our guy King VC has been great at promoting that over the last several weeks. We've been promoting that. Make sure you like this video. We're trying to get likes. That helps the algorithm and grows the community. That's the only way that we can combat and get as many Titans fans into the chat and the community as possible. The third thing is ring the bell. There's a bell icon. That means live alerts. If you have live alerts on, if we go live at 8:03, 8:11, 8:06, doesn't matter. You get a live alert. And you get the same thing for primetime for Buck Rising. So that is always a value there. If you've liked and subscribed and ring the bell, you get a little golf clap right there to start the show. So that's what you need to do on YouTube. Facebook, what's going on Facebookers, bottom left corner of your screen. Share now to public. Sharing is caring, caring is sharing on this show. Share the show around. We need to pop up in your Facebook friends news feed. And let's get this party started on a Tuesday, talking about somewhat of a controversial pick. We'll hear from both GM and head coach. We'll hear from the community, and you'll hear from Austin and I. Let's get this thing going.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome in the A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Zach Bingham, and we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they help out all of you. Like Wilson County Hyundai, make them a part of your new car buying process. See them in Lebanon or online, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org. The region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. And Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer with 3 great locations in the mid-state in Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. They are online at krebskubota.com. So I did see a follow-up question to our conversation yesterday, Zach, where we spent nearly the entire show on first-round pick J.C. Latham. Andrew says, "This is important. Does Zach think J.C. Latham will ever be a Pro Bowler? Because if you don't, then that's like the groundhog seeing or not seeing his shadow about what will happen with that particular left tackle. And maybe J.C. Latham and Taylor Lewan could have that in common. So I don't know if that's an important follow-up to you, but do you think J.C. Latham has it in him to become a Pro Bowler?"
It's a good question.
That's a throwback. That's a throwback.
Well,
there
yeah, I
on
mean,
Vegas.
you had the Derrick Henry take, I had the Taylor Lewan take, right? So this could break.
Oh,
This
yeah.
could break it.
Does he have it in him to be was he born to be a Pro Bowl tackle in the NFL? I said it yesterday. Remember, he was a third overall prospect as a 5-star recruit. He lived up to it. Top 7 pick. Was he born to be a Pro Bowl tackle in the NFL, Zach?
You know what? I am going to say that he makes at least one Pro Bowl. And some of that is on Latham. Some of that is on the Pro Bowl being easier to be made now compared to when Taylor Lewan made the Pro Bowl. Now, he's got to stay away from PEDs and keep his knees intact. But, yeah, I will say one Pro Bowl at least.
There you go. The Titans did a good job of drafting Pro Bowlers in 2 different eras with Brad Hopkins and Taylor Lewan with some high first-round draft picks. And then we'll see if Latham can be the third of that.
Now, will it be with the Tennessee Titans? We'll find out. That I don't know. You hope that it's with the Titans. But and by that time, it may be back in Hawaii. Who knows what they're doing with the Pro Bowl games or
right.
So I'll say yes, at least one.
Now, T'Vondre Sweat, I think, is even more controversial of a conversation starter of where the Titans took him. The big man out of Texas won the Outland Trophy this past season in college football for being the best defensive lineman in college football, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. T'Vondre Sweat goes 38th overall. There's been a lot, Zach, about T'Vondre Sweat. Sam basically fell in love with the big man T'Vondre Sweat at the Senior Bowl, which was the end of January, early February. And then T'Vondre Sweat would not stop popping up on the show when Sam was hosting. And then the DWI came in mid-April. He comes and does his 30 visit with the Titans right after that DWI arrest. And the Titans take him at 38 overall. And that was a signaling that the Titans would be done for that day on Friday of the draft without a third-round pick. There was opportunities to either trade back at 7 or trade back at 38. And the Titans stuck at 7 with Latham, and they win it at 38 with T'Vondre Sweat. And it was an interesting pick. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, ooh, that feels very, very early for T'Vondre Sweat. And so I think we can go ahead and dive into our question here. Before we do this a little differently today, before we get into some Ran Carthon and some other comments from Brian Callahan, let's just go ahead and jump into this, Zach. Was the 38th overall pick used for T'Vondre Sweat too early, or was it just right by the Titans? Because I remember seeing this 38th pick of you had opportunity to move back, and we'll hear from Ran Carthon coming up, but too early or just right to get T'Vondre Sweat. I think the Chargers did a great job throughout the entire draft of basically taking the guy that I think the Titans could have picked right before him a couple times with Joe Alt and then Ladd McConkey in the second round. But just right or too early for Sweat at 38. We've already got comments flying in. So, Zach, I'll send you to the chat on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to read the early question of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to read those. It's kind of funny because the chat gets this misconstrued. Just because I said J.C. Latham was not a top 10 pick doesn't mean that I think he's ass, right? Like there's a difference. I still don't think he's a top 10 pick, but
he is.
Still doesn't
you don't
mean
think
that
he was worth it?
No, well, yeah. As far as where you should have drafted him, in my opinion, right? He obviously was. We have the final say on that. But it doesn't mean that I think he's going to be terrible. I think there's question marks surrounding J.C. Latham, where he was drafted, and also him switching positions. And that will be a hot topic throughout all of minicamp, all of OTAs, and all of training camp, and obviously throughout the course of the season. Once he figures it out or doesn't figure it out, we'll know that probably in short time. I think we'll probably know that mid-season of this rookie year if this guy can play left tackle. So we digress to the question, which I think is a valid question. You talk about controversy at the top of the draft, in opinion. There's controversy with Sweat. Was the 38th overall pick too early or just right? Just like Latham, I thought that was too early. Is Sweat too early or is it just right? Austin, you may think that it was just right because thought he could have been a top 10 pick. Sweat, he had the question marks, but he also has the play, right? Like this guy, if you watch the semifinals in Texas versus Washington, like he was a force. He was that white blob in the middle of the screen wearing the Texas jersey.
Yeah.
Like he was an immovable object at times. And so too early or just right. Let's get to the chat and get some of the comments because I do think this is valuable. Luman is saying no comment. So Luman is officially sitting out of this
comments with no comment. You didn't have to do that, Luman. You could have just not commented, but I appreciate the algorithm boost.
Brad Anderson goes just right. There was a run on DTs. We'll talk about that because we can break down that. Too early, big time. Just right from Katie. Way too early from Hello Ladies. Just right from Cost 66. Just right from Paul. Big Ten Jeff says too early. Just right from Eric. Just right from Jason. Just right from Andre. Just right from Patrick. Just right from Carl. So some just rights coming in along with Pistol Ramsey and Quentin Campbell. More just rights from Deshaun Washington and Cameron Strong. They say just right, but I'm going to say never mind Titan. That's what NM stands for. Never mind.
It's New Mexico Titan.
It's never mind Titan. Never mind.
He's been watching the show for years.
Never mind Titan says too soon. Yeah. Sorry, it's already done. Never mind Titan says too soon to tell. Deborah says just right. Just right for Mayo Missile, which is a unique name in itself. Let's see here. Too early from Sports Fan. Should have moved back. We'll talk about the trade opportunities here shortly. Jill goes just right. Daniel says just right. Just right from Nathan. So does Brandon. So I think overall, you probably like 70-30 just right from the chat when it comes to this. Austin, what do you think about Sweat being selected 38? He had the DUI issue. He's got the weight issue. I mean, you can call it what it is. This man is oversized. I do think you got an opportunity. You're a professional now. You got smoothie machines. I mean, you have smoothie machines in Texas. But,
Texas has got anything that any player could ever ask for.
Well, I don't know. Charlie Strong pulled those out the years that he was in.
Yeah, what iPhone did Charlie Strong use when he was the head coach at Texas, Zach?
Let's see here. Charlie Strong?
What the hell is Charlie
The iPhone
Strong?
was still around when Charlie Strong was in Texas?
No, that's why I said which iPhone. What number iPhone was Charlie Strong using at Texas?
Charlie Strong was, he's coached a lot. 2014 to 2016. So
God, what Charlie Strong fumbling the bag of the best job you could possibly get. Charlie Strong, awful. How do you
real update for everybody that didn't know? Charlie Strong went in there and did like old school, we're gonna work, pulled all of the amenities that the boosters had paid. Like they had fingerprint handles on their doors. And we don't want that technology.
No, you're using a key. You're using the old school key to.
So a little side note, they're going to need that smoothie machine at St. Thomas Sports Park to get T'Vondre Sweat to the weight desired and the play desired. He's a really good player, really talented player, but with the off the field mistakes combined with the questionable consistency. Because the bigger you are, the tireder you get. I think that's how it works. Yeah. That creates some controversy.
So the question, too early or just right to take T'Vondre Sweat at 38? I am a strong believer that 38 was too early for T'Vondre Sweat. And I was sitting there thinking, how could you take T'Vondre Sweat at 38 and then just be like, all right, good night. That's it for Friday. We'll see you guys Saturday morning at pick 106. I just felt like it was not maximized enough. And I heard when Buck Rising in the 615 Sessions podcast right after the draft on Saturday evening with Joe Rexrod and Paul Kaharski. And Paul had a good point, I thought, is, the DWI happened, right? Like that is a thing. And there's also character issues. Somebody just asked, is there more? Do we have mistakes, plural, or a mistake in a DWI? This isn't just a DWI situation. This is other things of immaturity and, ballooning up to whatever weight close to 400 pounds and having to make sure that he stays committed to the program and do whatever they need him to do at Texas. And, Brian Callahan said he's a big man. He's got big man problems. And the Titans are going to do everything they can to make sure that if his big man problems get too big, it's going to hit him in the pocket big. Like they're going to put the Eddie Lacy plan on keeping T'Vondre Sweat not to balloon to 380 pounds that he's been reported at.
What are big man problems?
Gaining weight fast, eating a large French fry and gaining 8 pounds, where the math doesn't math. But that's a big man problem because, it's just body fat and how his body tends to
having a calorie deficit. I mean, you can't gain 8 pounds by eating a medium French fry. You got to eat 12 medium French fries.
Well, no, that's the example of big man problem. Maybe his metabolism's not great.
No, I think the big man problem is don't eat 12 medium
French
fries.
That's the point, is that the lack of discipline and the lack of willpower to avoid the things that are going to get him to balloon up to the 380 range, which has been kind of the conversation. And then the partying that he was doing and not taking football as serious as he could have in his early days at Texas. So I think 38, but Paul's point was the DWI could have created an opportunity for the Titans to get better value by knowing that the DWI is basically a failure of an IQ test before the draft, in knowing that he's going to fall and taking advantage of the failed IQ test and getting better value out of that. So my answer is very strongly 38, way too early.
So I'm actually going to use a bit of material because, speaking of PK, he brought this to my attention. I'm glad that it broke out. And I was actually going to go back and do some of this math, and I'm glad we have this now, is what all happened. You got to think about, there's 2 defensive tackles that went prior. So those don't matter, right? Because they didn't take Sweat. But at 38, you got to look and say, what happens after 38 to tell me if this is too early or just right? And I think there's one key catalyst to this decision. So PK tweeted this out, goes from, 7 trades were made in the second round. Yeah. The dropbacks, 13, 10, 8, 6, 4, 3, and 1 spot. So what are they trying to get back to not give up all of their draft assets? But I think you look at these, 39th, the third line on the right side of this graphic. The Rams received the 39th overall pick. The Panthers received 52, 155 in 2025 in the second round. So the Rams, I think, is the key cog because, Austin, the Rams ended up taking a defensive tackle, Braden Fix, out of Florida State, who's a dominant force. My question, and I don't know if Ran has answered this, I don't know if he would, did the Rams have interest of taking Sweat? Because the Rams were obviously interested in moving up to get a defensive tackle. That's what they did. The draft told us. After the Rams took the defensive tackle, Fisk from Florida State, there was a run on corners. Corner, right? We knew that the top of the second round was going to be defensive oriented because the whole first round was damn offensive players and quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks, wide receivers, and the rest offensive players, it felt like. The Rams, I think, are the curveball in this. Rams, here's my question, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this. Maybe you will. Maybe Rand, this is a good question for the interview that he did yesterday. Did the Rams call the Titans to try to trade up? And if the Rams did the Titans ask what players were they targeting? Because if they are targeting defensive tackle, then you ask them, well, what defensive tackle are you targeting? Well, we like Fisk and Sweat. I think we're debating between that. Or if it's, we really we're going to take Sweat. We think that's who we're going to take. Or we're going to take Fisk. We didn't even think about it twice. That's who our guy is. That's who we're trading up. We really want to do that. And if you guys don't do it, we're going to trade with the Panthers right behind you. But what were those conversations? Because Austin, I think it's very difficult to answer. And
I have an answer for it. I actually have an answer for it.
Go.
But first, I'm going to tell you guys, it is Mother's Day season. May starts tomorrow, which means Mother's Day is just around the corner, coming up in less than 2 weeks. So don't screw up Mother's Day because that's something that you should never do, because moms deserve their day, and you can give them their day of peace with a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Go to momentspeace.com/mom and get a gift card for them today. It could be a little bit for a mani-pedi. It could be a lot of it for that 90-minute massage or a full day of peace, a half day of peace, anything they have to offer at a momentspeace.com in Franklin, right off of Carruthers in Cool Springs. It's a great spot to go. Zach already flashed his a Moment's Peace gift card that he's got. Is that for you or is that for somebody else? I don't know who that is. Is that a gift that you're about to give to somebody, or is that a youth thing?
It is a gift I'm going to give.
Okay, all right. So hopefully you're not spoiling it here.
Maybe
maybe I'm spoiling it.
Yeah, you spoiled it. So now everything's ruined. No, I'm joking. No, this. Look, we need. This is not a prop. Actually, I mean, this is actually. Really,
you're gonna open it now.
You got
now. You're gonna give an open gift.
Look, because this is a full prop. See, now it's back to normal, right?
Yeah,
it was never open. But this is authenticity. We got to be real on this show. We can't be fake. So this is what you're going to get. And her eyes are going to light up when you hand her this moment, because the excitement is what's inside of this. And so that's why it doesn't really matter. It's what comes with this, right?
Right.
So that's the power of a Moment's Peace.
That's right. And you can always win Mother's Day at a momentspeace.com/mom. Zach, you asked me a great question. Do I think the Rams were interested in T'Vondre Sweat at the 39th pick, where they traded up with Carolina to get Braden Fisk? My answer is I obviously can't confirm that the Rams were one of the teams that called Ran Carthon to say, hey, we want to come up and trade for that 38th pick, and we're going to take T'Vondre Sweat. But I'm going to try my best to connect the dots as much as I can. What is the difference? And this is a rhetorical question, but the Rams took Braden Fisk, defensive tackle out of Florida State, right after the Titans took T'Vondre Sweat, D tackle out of Texas. What is the difference in those two defensive tackles? They play the same position across the interior D-line in T'Vondre Sweat and Braden Fisk. 70 pounds, at least, reportedly. Braden Fisk is listed under 300 pounds at 290, and T'Vondre Sweat is listed over 360 pounds, and that might be generous on the low end. So the difference they are different type of defensive tackles. That T'Vondre Sweat is more Haloti Ngata, is more Vince Wilfork, and Braden Fisk is more of that quicker, undersized, powerful guy that they're looking to replace the Aaron Donald role. In no way in hell is Braden Fisk Aaron Donald. Not saying that. But their style of defensive tackle is the quicker, win fast, get penetration like Aaron Donald would do, where T'Vondre Sweat is a gap eater and just, center of pocket dominator. They're different type of defensive tackles. So I don't necessarily know if the Rams would be interested in Sweat. My gut says no. I don't think the Rams would have taken Sweat at 39 if the Titans didn't.
Well, look at the other. There wasn't another defensive tackle that was that gap filler that you're describing. The rest of the defensive tackles that went after were all 300 or less pounds. You're not even close to where Sweat is weighing in.
Yeah.
So that's where I would combat is it didn't like you look at the run on defensive tackles after Fisk, essentially. Mason Smith out of LSU. He's long. He's 6'5", 306, but still not even close to Sweat. Chris Jenkins taken by the Bengals, which is a topic of conversation that we'll get to. 6'3", 299, under 300 pounds. Michael Hall Jr. that was taken later in that round.
Undersized. Yes.
6'3", 290. So I would combat the argument is there was no one else like Sweat. So you can't sit there and say, well, because they didn't take a guy like Sweat, there wasn't one. He was the guy in the second round that the Titans went with him for a reason. And we'll hear from Ran and we'll hear from Brian Callahan throughout the course of this show on why. But that's where I push back. Austin, I have an inkling, and I do not know, just like we don't know what the phone call conversations was, but I think that the Rams is the key catalyst to this. That's why I actually say that this is just right. I think the Rams called to trade, and I think that the Titans, which they should have, asked, well, what position are you targeting? Defensive tackle. And then they turned to their board and they said, well, our top guy is T'Vondre Sweat. We cannot lose this guy. I think that they got, I don't want to say scared, but pressured in to saying, we got to take this guy because the Rams are the key to this conversation. So I don't think it's too early. I think it's just right because that's the guy. We'll talk about the due diligence of the DWI and, the Big Mac and fries issue is a Big Mac and fries issue. It didn't matter what team picked him. They was going to have a Big Mac and fries issue. The Rams, I think, pressured the Titans into him. And if that was the guy that they felt, because look at the rest of the defensive tackles. One is unlike all of the others, and that one is Sweat. You already have Jeffrey Simmons, right? That man's going to be there, and he's dominant. So that's why you paired the run stop. And the Titans have been overall very good at run defense, right?
Yeah.
I think they wanted to stay that consistency because, they had to replace Danico Autry. They had to replace some pieces. I think the Rams are the key of why I'm saying that they wouldn't have gotten Sweat.
Okay.
Now, if they were willing, this is the last thing I'll say. If they were willing to trade with the Rams to get picks because they didn't care that much about Sweat, but their actions tell us that was their guy. Just like J.C. Latham.
Sure.
That was their guy.
No.
Two are very similar. Both are like, well, we feel like you could have traded back and gotten more value and played the draft, but Ran Carthon didn't play this draft.
He did not. And so Chef Ran, not Ran Carthon, but Chef Ran says Sweat had 31 pressures, way more than a run stopper. And I'm not trying to say that T'Vondre Sweat is only a run stopper. My analysis of Braden Fisk to the Rams and Sweat to the Titans is they are both very good defensive tackles. Sweat was the Outland Trophy winner for the best one in all of college football. So he got that for a reason. But they're different styles where you've got the slicing and dicing type of penetration that a quicker player and a lesser sized player like Braden Fisk and Mike Hall from Ohio State can do compared to the man mover and earth mover of a T'Vondre Sweat and what the Rams defense has been doing for the last decade with Hall of Famer Aaron Donald. A lot of that defensive scheme was built around what Aaron Donald could do. And just like the Titans are building around what Jeffrey Simmons can do. Simmons and Sweat complement each other very nicely. So I don't hate
Sweat was you just said he's the best defensive tackle. If the Rams wanted the best, if the Rams wanted the best defensive tackle in college football, that influenced Ran Carthon, in my opinion. If they didn't, then that's something that we won't know. But from the outside, and this is why I've kind of built from yesterday's show to today's show, this could be a criticism of Ran Carthon's 2024 draft if you look at the future, and we'll find out what happens. But Ran did not play the draft game.
He did not.
And that's okay. You don't have to play the game every single time. But there were two key opportunities where players were wanted. Quarterbacks, defensive tackles, corners, right? After this, corners went. So corners were valued.
Look, I'll tell you.
He said that he got calls. So Latham and Sweat, that pick, the selections, both had quite a bit of value. And Ran Carthon and his front office decided not to play the games with the value that they were given.
All right, so we've got Ran Carthon video to play. A lot of you guys are referencing that comment that he made. We'll play that here in a second. I'll also tell you what I would have done with the 38th overall pick if I were in that chair and did not trade back too. So we'll get to those. But first, Zach, tell everybody about Farm Bureau Health Plans.
FBHP.com is where to go. Health, dental, and vision. 200 plus locations across the state of Tennessee. They can get you covered with your health plan, individually or for your family. They've been in business over 75 years. They're trusted by the Nashville Predators, Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Volunteers, and A to Z Sports. They've got great partnerships all across the state. They can partner with you, health, dental, and vision. They put it all together. You take a health assessment, you get a quote, and you make a decision. That's Farm Bureau Health Plans of Tennessee. We love FBHP.com/ATOZ.
And with BetMGM, you can always win big with our bonus code for new users at A to Z Sports to get your up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. But it is NBA playoff action with BetMGM. You can boost your odds on your next NBA playoff wager. Just log into that BetMGM account today and receive an odds boost token for playoff hoops action. Then place a wager on any NBA playoff matchup and apply that token. Just make sure to bet up to the minimum stake odds and legs specified on the token. And if your boosted wager hits, you'll score up to 50% more winnings at BetMGM. That's BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older, Tennessee only. Existing customer offer. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards issued at knowledgeable funds. And gambling problem, call Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789. So let's hear from Titans GM Ran Carthon about what he thought on the 38th overall pick and T'Vondre Sweat on 104.5 The Zones with RKW yesterday morning.
In your perspective, to not trade out and your mindset, do you think there would have been somebody that definitely took T'Vondre ahead of you guys, which is why you pulled the trigger also?
Absolutely. And, you know, regardless of what, I promise everything that we do, we're well researched, and we know. And what people don't see is the text messages and the calls you get from teams, after you take, quote unquote, their guy, and how many texts and calls were, oh, we were taking him with our next pick, or great pick, and that's not just T'Vondre, that's with most of these guys. And so, there's a lot of, backroom conversation going on, but trust me, had we tried to move, and I trust me, I had a earmark, on the board of, hey, this is the furthest we could go back and still get a guy of his caliber. And even with that, one of the teams that I earmarked that we could go below to get him texted and said after the draft that, like, hey, we would have taken him if he was there, so we would have missed out.
So
was that the Ram? I hadn't heard that. But you could tell, you could connect the dots based on the draft. That was the first time I heard that audio. Austin, he might as well have just said exactly what I said without the team name. Like, he's telling us that's why it's just right. They would not have gotten him.
Yeah, but that's what, like, you hear that after every draft. We got a blue chip player on board. He was at the top of it. That's how we wanted to.
This is a controversial pick. This is the difference.
Yeah, so
everybody's trying to get value. Everyone is trying to get a value player. Jeffrey Simmons dropped in the draft because of the ACL and the off-the-field issues from a top 5 guy. I mean, we all said that Jeffrey Simmons was a top 5 defensive lineman, and he dropped to the late teens because of the off-field. Sweat, they're trying to get value. Oh, how can we get this guy because they targeted him? And so I think Rand just proved the point that it was right because they wouldn't have gotten him.
I think you have to, I think you have to take a lot of things that GMs and coaches say after the drafts with a grain of salt, because Chris is right. He's telling us because he knows what we want to hear. As Titans media and fans, that's what we want to hear. We want them to defend their picks, give us a fun inside look. It could be true, but I'm also not Zach, you are somebody who you're skeptical of doctors when you go to a doctor's appointment. You should be skeptical of what general managers say in the days after the draft about what happened in the war room of those drafts. Like, that should be how you should approach this too. Take it with a grain of salt. He could be saying the 100% truth. He could be saying the 50% truth, but you have to at least say, of course, it's in his best interest to say, yeah, somebody texted me and said, yeah, we would have taken him if you didn't. Of course, that would be beneficial for him to say that.
He's too new at his job to be playing that.
No, you are not giving Ran Carthon enough credit.
No, I'm not. I'm not because he's been on the job for a year. Like John Robinson, how did that, and Mike Vrabel, and you've covered teams, Titans, general managers, and coaches long enough to know the older and more experienced they get, the more games that they play with the media. But early on, John Robinson's crying, right? Because of Kevin Dodd and a bad pick. You grow into, and that's why I don't think that he's sitting here playing tomfoolery. I think he's actually being honest. Look how the draft played out. Austin, look at the number of trades. Like it's right there in front of your face.
I get it.
Do you get it? But look at the number of trades. That is an unworldly number of trades, Austin. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is straight, cold, hard facts that we have.
But
34th, 35th, 39th, 40th, 41st, 46th, 63rd.
I got it.
Do you?
But yes. So you have Braden Fisk at 39. So the three picks right after the Titans at 39, 40, and 41 all got traded, right? And so those positions, Braden Fisk, D tackle, Cooper DeJean, defensive back, Kool-Aid McKinstry, defensive back, two guys that play defensive back that dropped out of the first round that a lot of people thought were first rounders. Then Kamari Lassiter and Max Melton go cornerback. 4 consecutive cornerbacks go in a row after Braden Fisk and T'Vondre Sweat. And so, Burning Devil says, Austin's just trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be difficult because I think when you mentioned Ran Carthon being young in his role, like, sure, he's early on in this role, but there is one quote that I think everybody should remember about Ran Carthon. When the Titans fired Mike Vrabel, Buck Rising put out a report on A2ZSports.com with a quote from an NFL source that said, Ran Carthon is a master politician. Ran Carthon knows what he's doing. You should give Ran Carthon more credit because Ran Carthon spent the first year in his job in a lot of ways giving Mike Vrabel enough decision-making power to mess something up. Letting Mike Vrabel go sign Andre Dillard because Mike Vrabel can fix him as a left tackle. Mike Vrabel got his big head in trouble because Ran Carthon did just enough to allow it to happen and then come back and say, all right, now it's our draft moving forward. I think Ran Carthon knows what he's doing. I think he's calculated. I think he's smart. I think he's a really good relationship person, and he's a good talker. And so, again, with any GM.
His actions backed it up, Austin. In the first and the second round, he did not play the draft game where he could have traded back. He selected the guy that they targeted because he said, and this is his words, they wouldn't have been able to draft their targeted person. Whether you think J.C. Latham has a top 10 grade or not, that was their guy. So they selected him when there was quarterback-hungry teams ready to trade up. So that's an action. The second round is the exact same way. Sweat was his guy. There were corner and defensive tackle, defensive team need hungry teams ready to trade based on the trades that I just showed you. And what did he do? He stuck because he did not want to lose out on his guy. All of his actions are backing up his words. You can sit there and have history, but there is all you're saying is skepticism. All you're saying is, hey, look at the politics of it, which I get, but actions speak louder than words, and those are the best examples that can be shown.
Look, again, I like Ran Carthon. I'm excited to watch Ran Carthon do work. I don't dislike T'Vondre Sweat at all. I'm intrigued. I think there's going to be a constant storyline with T'Vondre Sweat. And the guy is a mountain who can move. I think is a little slow off the ball, but can they do that? But I think Ran Carthon is a really good, smart, political type player. And that is who you need in the general manager spot. I think is a good player evaluator, all these things. I'm not hating on Rand by saying the things that I said. I just think you have to take with a grain of salt what GMs say after drafts, because they're always going to say the thing to make their pick look better.
Yeah.
Always.
I think
Anybody.
it's too early for us, in my opinion, it's too early to have a true opinion on Ran Carthon and what his job is and what he does. We don't know enough. He just got in the seat. It's been a year. Like for especially that position, you are like John Robinson. We have all of the bad decisions that he made to get him fired, right?
Sure.
We don't have any based on Ran being here for a year and a cup of coffee. Like, I mean, that's it. So I'm not going to sit here and say how great he is or how bad he is.
Say he was great.
You can. Oh no, hey, go. You can say whatever the hell you want. But I am not going to, because we don't have enough information on the decisions that have been made. They take longer than this.
All right. So I told you guys what I would have done with the 38th overall pick if I did not think trading back was the answer, because there clearly, as Zach has shown a couple times, I'll throw it up here again, there was a lot of action in the second round, right?
That's my roadmap. That tells you exactly how the draft played out, especially in the first round too, with all the quarterbacks. If you had that exact same spreadsheet, it tells you why he did what he did, justifiably so or not.
Sure. I don't deny that. And so my thought is, I said it was too early to take T'Vondre Sweat at 38.
So when should he have taken him?
I'm saying if you didn't think because Ran Carthon in that clip on the Zone that we just played said that he had this spot earmarked as you can't go back further than this number to get that high quality player. And so they stayed. So I'm not saying I would have traded back to see if we can get Sweat 5, 6 picks, whatever later. I'm saying if you can't trade off 38, I'm not going to get a player that I'm going to have to babysit. And whatever way you cut it.
So you're saying it was too early?
Too early to take Sweat.
So you move off of him.
I would have moved off of him. The player I would have drafted is who the Eagles traded up to 40 to get. Iowa defensive back Cooper DeJean. I would have taken Cooper DeJean at 38, moved into free safety next to Amani Hooker, and I would have gone 2 safeties, Iowa Hawkeyes. I would have gone that. I would have gone Cooper DeJean at safety because he's a return man too, and he's a first-round talent that can straight up ball, who you don't have to babysit, and I would have played him at starting safety, and he'd be your Kevin Byard replacement. That would have been my move. If I knew I can't trade off for 38, that's it, I go Cooper DeJean.
I think that's fair. If that's the backup plan. Because I looked at it as too early as like you could have gotten Sweat somewhere else. But you're saying that you're okay to move off of him. And look, that's fair to say because of all of the surrounding pieces around him. The Eagles, but look, early on of analyzing Ran, we don't have a large enough sample size, but Howie Roseman, he plays the game.
No,
right?
Yeah.
This man, he is moving pieces. He's not messing around. And he's not moving pieces like the Cleveland Browns, who are like sitting out of a full draft because they've given all their pieces up. He's going up, down, up, left, right, sideways, and he's finding value to do what you just described. Ran Carthon, that's why I say some of the inexperience, if the picks work, it doesn't matter. That's kind of the greatest part. But the safety of sticking and picking, I think is starting to show what Ran at least is starting his general manager career out doing, which is targeting a player and drafting him no matter what.
All right. So DeMario says, I hear some emotions and feelings in Austin. Who said you got to babysit Sweat? Brian Callahan said after the press conference after they drafted him, and I already quoted it, he's got big man problems, and they're going to implement a fine system if he gets overweight. So DeMario, the Titans said they have to babysit Sweat. Like, that is what that is. Like, you don't have to put weight clauses and fines in somebody's deal if you don't have to worry about it. That's who said they have to babysit him. Like, to an extent, like, yeah, you got to make sure. And I heard, who was
That's
it?
Eddie Lacy problems.
Yeah, no, I heard this from, I think it was Blaine Bishop. Somebody, it might have been Blaine, who said that when the Ravens drafted Jamal Lewis out of Tennessee as a running back in the first round, they gave him the Rod Woodson and said, Rod, if Jamal Lewis shows up late to meetings or practice, that means you show up late to meetings and practice. So if he's late, you're late, you have to run with him. And they gave Jamal Lewis, Rod Woodson, future Hall of Famer, to say, make sure this guy gets there and does it. Because if Jamal Lewis head on straight, then he's going to be great for us. And
I love that more than anything in life itself. That is
right.
That is great management. That's Brian Billick, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, it would have to be. And then Ozzie Newsome.
What a great managerial move is you essentially tie a rope, to both their waists and say, hey, this is what it is. You want to disappoint? Disappoint. The Bucs had to do that with LeGarrette Blount in a little different way, but you get the most. So who do you do that with now? Here's a little side question. Who do you do that on the defensive side of the football?
There is no question. There's only an answer, and it's Jeffrey Simmons, right? It's Jeffrey Simmons is going to be that Rod Woodson to Jamal Lewis. And I think it's great. Like, I don't hate Devondre Sweat. I think he's a really talented player that has a high upside. But again, the reality of the Titans draft is they spent 2 picks, 7 and 38, and then they had to wait a long time to 106. But 7, he's switching positions. 38, he's going to have some babysit management on the coaching staff, the strength and conditioning, and somebody on your roster. So it's 2 very high picks that have extra development that needs to happen on the field and then off the field with Sweat. And so you're not just taking 7 and 38 and saying, holes filled, right? Nope, there's work to be done. And I feel better like you can control the J.C. Latham right to left. That's a lot easier said than done than having a risk. And we'll get to the concern level here in a second. The risk of Devondre Sweat having some immaturity issues. And we all have them, but, we'll have to see what happens with Devondre Sweat. He obviously got right at Texas this past year and became the best offensive or defensive lineman in all of college football. So, again, I'm going with that Baltimore Ravens, Rod Woodson, and Jamal Lewis example because I think that's what Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat are going to be for the Titans for the foreseeable future. So, Zach, we're going to go ahead and play that video here in a second from Brian Callahan about Devondre Sweat and the research the Titans did on him. But first, telling everybody about the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to know who you can turn to and who to trust. And the Bone and Joint Institute is who I've turned to, whether it's been shoulder injury, a knee injury, a plantar fasciitis in my foot, was able to go there, avoid any type of serious injury because they were able to help me out with some home therapy tricks to make sure those injuries can be treated. And the Bone and Joint Institute has every bit of resources at their clinics across Williamson County and their main campus right off of Highway 96 and I-65 in Franklin next to Williamson Med. Boneandjointtn.org is where to go.
A to Z Sports, we are powered by BetMGM. I am a man of my word. I don't know if you remember what I said yesterday. We got double props today. We had a moment's peace, right? There's one prop. The other prop up in Detroit in the Big D, I went to the casino. And at the casino, when you play like a champion, you get swag like a champion. So we got BetMGM right here.
Oh, man.
Right here. This is
did you not give me one?
There was only one. You had to sign up for an app. You gotta,
man.
See, you got to be live and in person.
Oh, God. The jealousy.
Right?
That's a sweet hat.
Pretty sick. Don't mess with BetMGM. So,
damn it.
For everybody, I saw earlier that I look like a poor man Zac Efron. I actually will take that as a compliment. Not as right. So now the hair's covered up, but we're going live BetMGM. Hey, you can do some app digging right here in your app store. And once you settle on BetMGM, you're gonna be just fine. Bonus code ATOZ Sports. That's ATOZ Sports. They're the king of the sports book. We love BetMGM. Download the app today in your Apple or Android app store and get in on the action.
All right. So Brian Callahan was on 3HL on 104.5 The Zone yesterday. Really good interview. He talked a lot about Traylon Burks towards the end. We have an article up on AtoZsports.com about Callahan's comments about wide receiver Traylon Burks, but spending a lot of time on the draft, obviously, and discussing T'Vondre Sweat. Don Davenport, who does sideline of college football work with ESPN, discussed that she's heard about T'Vondre Sweat character issues of immaturity and partying early on in his college career. Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan did their homework on this. Callahan said before this clip that they were able to find that a lot of those off-the-field character issues that Sweat had was normal immaturity issues for college-age kids. And that is a credit to Ran Carthon to deciphering between what is a real character issue and what is just standard immaturity.
I would ask, is getting a DWI standard immaturity?
That's not separate. We're talking separate things. That freshman, sophomore year T'Vondre Sweat was standard college immaturity. The DWI is not what Callahan was lumping under.
But he was older when he got the DWI.
Listen to what I'm saying. We're having two different conversations. They're in different buckets. You're
going
to hear. For what I'm trying to say is there were before the DWI, there were character concerns with T'Vondre Sweat. Documented. Character concerns. You had to keep your thumb on him. You had to make sure he wasn't partying too much. He was in control of his weight so he could play enough on the field. That was pre-April of 2024 for his Texas career. Okay? There's that.
Then what
now
changed?
There's the DWI. What changed is he got serious about football, won the Outlet Trophy.
I'm just saying, all of the things, they don't connect. I get what you're saying, and you could justify it either way. And I'm interested to hear Brian. You're explaining it, but I'm pushing back because the dots don't connect. You can't sit here and tell me that he was immature, typical immaturity as a freshman and sophomore, and then he gets a DWI prior to get drafted, and then you've got to create a babysitting program for him after he was drafted. So those don't all connect. Now I'm curious to hear what Brian Callahan has to say to defend this. Doesn't mean that he's going to be a bad person or a bad player, but there should be some concern based on one's history. When you get pulled over by the cops and you have 5, different things of crack that you've been caught with, they're going to get a little curious, right? Yeah. You are what history shows you are. That is welcome to society. And so we should and are criticizing his actions. I'm curious of what Callahan has to say to defend that.
All right, here's Brian Callahan on the DWI arrest and situation with Titan second-round pick T'Vondre Sweat on 3HL.
It's just our process was just to make sure that obviously the incident's important and the trouble that he got in, he was forthcoming on what happened, how it happened, and then the process involved in it, and took responsibility for his part in the actions, which is obviously we don't want to get behind the wheel at any point when you've had anything to drink. That's not very smart. It's a really dumb decision, and ultimately could have cost him his life at the end of the day. And so his awareness and willingness to accept his fault in the process, and then being forthcoming and honest about how it happened, what happened, it made us feel a lot more comfortable about what kind of person we're getting. People make mistakes, and I think that he learned some pretty valuable lessons in the process. And, I think we're going to get the best of him when he gets here. And like a lot of guys out there, they need to know that you care about them and you got their back too, and they tend to give you their best. And so that's part of that process and why we went down there. And, we felt really comfortable with the person after that visit. And again, he came in here right after his DUI incident, like a day or two after he came in here on his 30 visit. And I think Ran alluded to it as well, that he was just very much on the defensive, trying to make sure he could clear his name. And we just didn't feel like we got the real version of Big Sweat. And so we wanted to make sure we did a little more research on it. And I think what happens when you do that is you allow yourself the opportunity to make a really informed decision, as opposed to just taking a write-up on a kid and saying, he's off our board, without really doing the homework. And as a player, he's worth that effort, I guess, is the point that I'm getting at, is that his film as a defensive lineman was worth the effort to make sure we knew what we were getting.
So there's Brian Callahan. Again, they brought in T'Vondre Sweat on the 30 visit right after the DWI arrest, and then went and visited him in his hometown with his family to learn the real Big Sweat, as Brian Callahan coined it. And I thought the real interesting answer to that is what Callahan ended with, that the tape made it worth doing all the extra homework on the player to become the 38th overall pick. So, Zach, what's your thoughts on what you heard from the head coach there?
I mean, this is by far, in 2 years that Ran Callahan has drafted, the riskiest pick. Will Levis, you risk it on the field because it's quarterback and all that. But you talk about risk of a player, and Titans fans know this because of Isaiah Wilson. It will always go back to Isaiah Wilson, the first-round draft pick. That why are you drafting back-to-back first-round offensive linemen now is because of number 79, Isaiah Wilson, and the problems that he had, that he didn't even get out of the gates. So I think you're always going to have those concerns because he went AWOL. We talk about the worst first-round pick in the history of the NFL, I think, is Isaiah Wilson. He didn't get out of the blocks. For Sweat, I think it's hard because I don't think anybody's questioning on the field. On the field, he's shown that he is a dominant force, that he can play, that he can attack offensive linemen and get after the quarterback and disrupt. That's all well and good, but if you're not available, it doesn't matter. And the NFL has cracked down more on off-field issues. I think that you talk about like all of that, a little yappy yap. That's kind of what I'm hearing. The history is the history. The history shows that Sweat has issues. We'll find out if the Titans structure can fix them, right? But don't feed me a load of crap. I will say that. I was not born yesterday. I've seen too many of these players, but don't sit there and say he was immature back in the day and then matured, then got a DWI, and and we were comfortable with all that stuff. Well, you took a risk. Just call it like it is. They took a big risk on a character questionable player that also has weight issues. So those are double issues. Can he get past both of those issues? Yes, I think that there is an opportunity to get past them. But don't sell me a false bill of goods that, that he just got the DWI. He just made the bad mistake. It's a mistake. Everybody knows growing up that you don't drink and drive. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to good people, and mistakes don't happen. We get that, right? But don't sit here and sell me on something that we all have the history to. Just say you took the big risk, and they did. And
I do think, look, I think it's unique that an NFL team would go through that extra level of effort to fly out to a draft prospect's home and visit with them outside of the regular Senior Bowl, Combine, Pro Day, 30 visit structure. Like, that is unique. And so I think you have to give the Titans credit for that. If they didn't do that, then it's even riskier.
I agree.
Right?
It tells you that they really value him on the field, because the question marks are off the field. You want to do, and that's why I'll hats off to the Titans for at least doing their due diligence, right? Because it's not the Isaiah Wilson COVID. I mean, we could tell. Everybody could tell. They did not do their homework on that man. And maybe it was, because of COVID, we had to do a bunch of Zoom calls. We weren't experienced in Zoom call meetings. I don't know what the excuses were.
Yeah, no, I think if the Titans met Isaiah Wilson in person and had him in for a 30 visit, they wouldn't have drafted him. I buy that.
I hope that they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I respect the Titans for doing the extra mile, but don't sell us that he's been healed by the water.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are selling that he's been healed. I think, Callahan said it right there. He goes, on the 30 visit, he was trying to clear his name, trying to defend himself, taking accountability, and wasn't the real person. And they wanted to learn more about.
But his history shows that is him.
Maybe.
But and that's where I push back is, if you have the data of your history, if you've been arrested 4 times for whatever, that's your history, brother. Whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, that's your history. And you will be judged on how to get a job or other things based on your history. Sweat had immaturity issues early on at Texas. History. Got a DWI during the most crucial time in his life, Austin. You can't sit there and justify that. If I dangle millions of dollars out and say, don't get in trouble for 6 months, and you get in trouble, that's your dumbass. That's not anybody else. Yep. If you have weight issues and you've been teetering back from 360 to 375 to 359, and you can't get that under control, that's your history.
He's the only person in the history of the Senior Bowl to not weigh in at the Senior Bowl.
So running from it, right? So I'm not saying that he's not going to work out, but Austin, we now, as the fans, the chat, media, people that criticize and analyze, you can't get upset at us for sitting here and criticizing if he, in fact, makes another mistake or doesn't turn out.
All right. So we're going to ask a question to everybody here. And I'm going to say this first. There are way worse human beings drafted higher than T'Vondre Sweat in the NFL. There are a lot of people that have gone through the NFL that are not good people. It's documented. There's arrests for serious, bad human things. And that is not what we're talking about with T'Vondre Sweat, right?
Correct.
I just made not at you, but just
and never mind. Titan says as acting like he's killed a guy. I'm not acting like he's killed a guy. He's done all of these things.
You could have with the DWI easily, right? That I think.
Yeah. Well, to clarify, he says like he already killed somebody. So there's a difference. Yes, when you make bad decisions, you put yourself and others in dangers and harm way. There are levels and degrees, right? O.J. Simpson's different than getting pulled over for a mere traffic stop for speeding, right? So, there's a difference. I understand that. What I'm saying is there's a lot of these, if you want to call them mini mistakes or big mistakes, regular mistakes, I don't know. In a shorter period of time prior to get drafted for a franchise taking a chance and a risk on you. That's what I'm bringing up is your history. If you've got arrested twice in 50 years, you probably are looked at differently than if you got arrested twice in 5 years, right?
Yep.
So that's what I'm bringing up.
And New Mexico Titan says, the accurate part of this is T'Vondre Sweat was rear-ended when he was driving, and that's where the DWI happened, right? So again, I'm not saying that clears the DWI away. I'm saying that is the incident is he was rear-ended while driving. Then he went over the illegal limit and got a DWI after the rear ending that happened on the road, right? You can't do that regardless. It's, can't do that. Avoidable, stupid. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. I think that is where I'm at with that. I know really good people that have gotten DUIs, DWIs in college or right out of college that are great people. They made dumbass mistakes that were 100% avoidable, 1,000% avoidable. I think we're trying to, we understand that, right? So,
yeah, but those guys, again, the difference is I'm not saying he's a bad guy either. He's made mistakes that have been documented. What I'm saying
the opportunity, right? It's doing it as the
getting drafted to a contract. Nobody in this virtual room is gonna get or has, and I don't know the full room, the full chat, but gets a multi-million-dollar contract prior to the age of 23 with the history that Sweat has. It's a unique situation. That's why I think it's so compelling, essentially, to discuss.
All right, so let's ask this question. What's your concern level about T'Vondre Sweat's character issues off the field on a 1 through 10 scale? And 10 being Isaiah Wilson. So what is your concern level with T'Vondre Sweat's off the field issues, with 10 being Isaiah Wilson from a few years ago? But first, Krebs Kubota is where you should turn for all of your equipment needs. KrebsKubota.com. Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment provider. They've been doing it for over 18 years in the mid-state and are phenomenal when it comes to customer service. And they are an elite Kubota dealer, meaning they have the best equipment in the industry and also the best customer service and the best warranties in the industry as well. So it's springtime, nearing summer. Make sure you have that right equipment for your residential or commercial property to either buy it for the long term or rent it for project by project needs online at KrebsKubota.com.
AZ Sports, powered by, just look at the lid, BetMGM. Download the app today. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports. They're the king of the sports book. You can get right there on your Apple or Android app store right there, BetMGM.
All right, so the question on a 1 through 10 scale, what is your concern level with T'Vondre Sweat's off-the-field character issues, with 1 being none at all, 10 being Isaiah Wilson, which is as extreme as it gets, for playing 4 snaps in the NFL, 3 of them being field goals, and then being suspended out of the league and doing whatever he's doing now. So 1 through 10, Zach, what are you seeing from the chat so far on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch? Facebook's having some problems here, but I think we're working our way back.
Yeah, Clayton says 6, Luman 2, Logan 4.5, Gene says 1, American Toff goes 8, Randy goes 9, so high numbers there. B. Jern says 2. Derek says 0. Duran says 3. Nevermind Titan says 6. Nathan says 4. 10 being Isaiah Wilson. Yep, that's the scale that we set. 0. Ran will get him right. Steve says 4. Reforming the Outdoors goes 3. 1.5 from DeMarco. Cameron Strong goes 2. Melissa also goes 2. Justin 3. Charlie 5. Richie 7. Chris Frazier has no doubt about Sweat. So Bossman, no doubt about Sweat. Ocho, no doubt about Sweat. Caleb goes 6. Darius 4.89. Jared 0.105. 3. Character is 3. 5 is weight. So do you lump these together for the number?
So I'll just go ahead and answer it because, I think you have to, because I think the weight is the number one concern with Sweat, but I think the weight fluctuation is indicative of the character off the field. It's how tight do you get with your diet, with your lifestyle that reflects the weight, or the opposite of that, where the weight goes up and gets out of control and now you can't play as consistently as you could have. So my answer is 6.5 out of 10, and it all hinges on the weight. The weight will tell the story. If he's 380 pounds when he gets here at training camp and into the July, then that means he spent his 6 weeks off not doing what he was supposed to be doing. And now you got to work it back down. But my concern level can go down significantly if he shows up to training camp in the 350, 355 range, where his words, he'd be a Hall of Famer if he could stay at 355. Then now my character concerns go down quite a bit. So it all hinges on the weight because it tells a story.
Yeah, if you say that you'd be a Hall of Famer at 355, and this goes back to what kind of the consistency of what we know about him, then why wouldn't you be at 355? What excuse do you have if you believe that in your heart of hearts that at 355 you would be a Hall of Fame football player? What prevents you from being 355? Because if something prevents you from being 355, then you got a problem.
No,
right?
Look, it's a great question. Like, I mean, if somebody's asking me that, I don't think T'Vondre Sweat's in this situation, but pre-draft process, you're flying around, you're traveling a lot, going to different visits and pro days.
No one cares.
Zach, I'm not saying it's an excuse. I'm trying to, if you were asking me the question,
I am.
Yeah, no, if you're asking the question, then it's the pre-draft process is exhausting one where you're not in a routine because you're traveling around the different 30 visits and stuff. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, clearly the guy has he showed up to Texas at 280 pounds or something and gained nearly 100 over his time at Texas. That's a lot of weight to gain when you're already starting at 280. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's got thyroid issues. I don't know if there's something else going on there. We don't know that. There hasn't been anything said in the medicals from the pre-draft process to say that either. But yeah, it's a great question.
It's simple. I'm at a 7 because all of what he said compared to his actions are completely different. So I'm at a 7. But if Jeffrey Simmons is Rod Woodson, if Jeffrey Simmons is his Rod Woodson, I go to a 5.1. I think that it takes off 1.9 points of my concern if Jeffrey Simmons, as you said earlier, is now tied to the hip to Sweat to say this is how you are a professional. Because that's the problem with Sweat. He's not a professional. You hold yourself to a standard. I always say, and you've heard me say this, I say this to our employees, reliability and communication is a lifestyle. If you make it a lifestyle and you constantly communicate and you're constantly reliable, not many people are in this world. But if you make that a lifestyle, that's when you change your game. That's when, Austin, you say you're 355 and you're a Hall of Famer, that means you're 355. If I said I was going to be a Hall of Famer if I was 355 consistently, Austin, you wouldn't find my ass at 355 and a half. I don't think the same way about Sweat. I think a lot of this is a lot of lip service. He's got a great opportunity in front of him to prove a lot of people wrong. He's a great player. We don't doubt that. But the consistency off the field and the weight issues have got to get wrangled in. The good part, and here's the positivity, is you're now going to a franchise that can help you do your job. It's a job now. So he can go in there. He's got figures like Simmons, coaches, nutritionists. They can keep an eye on him. But anytime a guy has weight issues and has consistently had weight issues, I think that's a thing. And whether it's mental, it obviously is physical. He's going to have to prove me wrong on that.
And so, Shay asked, do you guys have the video that came out yesterday from him working out at Texas? Like, no, I saw it. Look, he said the right things. That's good. But it's easy right now. It's easy to be motivated right now because he just got drafted at 38. Like, he's got doubters. He's got something to prove. It's easy right now. It's what happens in 2 months after he leaves Nashville for the summer and he's got 6 weeks off before camp. What happens next offseason when he's gotten through rookie year. There's so many things that you can't just say he took accountability for his mistake in the DWI and he's working out at Texas right now. It's easy right now. It's easy to take accountability after you screw up like that. It's easy.
Traylon Burks has not worked out. Let's preface that. But he came in slow and out of shape and huffing and puffing. And don't you agree that over those 7 weeks in July, like he got better, he improved, he got something together where that wasn't his issue. He's got other issues now. What will Sweat be in mini camp and OTAs versus what will Sweat be in training camp? That now get your popcorn ready. Now that's a story to follow.
Sure. It's all about sustainability. It's how long because clearly he got right in this last year at Texas to win the Outland Trophy. Like, so he did it for a year. Now let's see how that can continue. And maybe he's figured it out. That would be great. That'd be great.
I don't think we're saying he's a common criminal and can never change his ways.
No.
Literally, Derek, I think what we're saying is that he has done common, or I don't want to say common because it's uncommon to do crimes. You should not do crimes. He has committed a crime and has had issues. He got drafted in the second round, high second round. They targeted him. We've told this story. Here's his opportunity. He should have doubters, right? His history shows you should have doubters. When you get arrested, you should have doubters in your life after that, right? That's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And that shouldn't be uncommon. You messed up. Go prove us wrong. It's easy.
All right. Super chats to get to before we get to throwing shade. Long show here today talking about T'Vondre Sweat. Andre said, hopefully he can be Albert Hainsworth minus the issues. Hainsworth had some, that was more temperament issues overall. DeMarco comes in and says, Ran was straight shot in this draft. Not sexy like Zach says, but it's building the best team possible. Overall, this was solid. Like, I don't think, you've got over 700 pounds in two guys, Latham and Sweat, drafted high to help build a foundation. I think nothing can really be argued with DeMarco there. Keen VC popping in, got here late, like the show. Yep, we need more likes on the show. Facebook having some issues so far this morning, but I think we've got that settled. But hit that like button if you can. Kane says, what were the term of the deals Ran missed? Zach we went through those several times. Rams gave up a lot to move up to 39 from 52. I don't think the Titans wanted any business of going back to 52, which I'm fine with. Any comments on that one?
No, I think history shows that the Rams were the key to this. I think the Rams were probably going to take Sweat, and the Titans didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. Andre says, again, my only negative about the draft was waiting till the end to draft a special teamer 2 years in a row. Neglecting wide receiver, the best class in years, is frustrating or infuriating. Yeah, I mean, I feel you on that, Andre.
Or you could say that all those teams got their wide receivers, and then next year you can get the pick of the litter, possibly.
Man, hey, guess what? Out last night, 3-round mock draft, 2025 NFL draft. So you can go figure out who the Titans have on A2ZSports.com in the first and second round. Our guy Travis May doing the Lord's work right there. And then Kane comes back and said a little smart ass comment. Which one of you was in the war room to see the board or hear the trade offers? Let Rand know A to Z has better scouting department. Next presser. Just saying. Look, I mean, whatever, Kane. I mean, we can have our opinions without being in the room, bro. Just like you are doing the same thing.
Oh man, you never played? Dude, you can't speak. You never played pro football. You can't talk about these guys. That's not how this works, Kane. Right? Like, war room. Give me a break. Like, there are mysteries that we've got to piece together. But that's an opportunity for Rand to say what he said, and we pick apart those and try to diagnose it and form opinions just like you guys do. The chat has their opinions too. It's kind of a tri-stream, not a three-way, but a tri-stream with Austin, myself, and the chat as a whole.
Yep. All right, let's do it and wrap up this show with some shade. Wilson County Hyundai, WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Check them out for your new ride. Go see them in Lebanon, save some money, and head out WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shade in the chat. If you've got it, get it off your chest. A lot of shade, I'm sure, that can be thrown on the show after a draft weekend. But I see Sean says, good news into a shade. Nelly concert in Knoxville was fun, but lasting close to 5 hours is too long. I'm getting old.
How many people were there? Because I've seen a clip on TikTok of a Nelly concert, and it was like in an arena, and I mean there was only like 200 people there, and it looked sad. So maybe I'd like to know if that was the case.
I'm not sure. Here, I'll let you read this one.
Never mind. Titan says shade on Zach. He's from New Mexico. So I'm glad to learn where you're from. Never mind.
Fair. We're getting some shade on us. Derek throwing shade at A to Z for this entire show in the Power Hour, saying shade on the show topic today. It's fine to critique and discuss. It's why we enjoy you. Sadly, you sold more negative points than positive. Just would have liked to see more balanced discussion.
Well, look, we told the story. This is a controversial pick.
Yeah.
Like we talked about JC Latham, and look, value Power Hour to your opinion. We talked about JC Latham and what he represented and Austin talked about his journey to get to where he is. What we thought about it. Was it a reach at 7, or did they get their guy to justify it? Today was about Sweat and Power Hour. If you just got drafted and you refused trades because you targeted this guy so much, but he was the most controversial player off the field that this draft had, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So we diagnosed that. The Titans did their due diligence. On top of the controversies off the field of the immaturity, he's got a weight issue. So you've got to bring these up, because once we talk about it and then he shows up, he has the opportunity to shut us up. So
Sure.
You may think it's negative, but I don't think we said anything that was untrue.
Yeah. IR Hoshi says shade on him for falling and breaking bathroom fixtures. Could have been worse, but I was woozy for a few minutes. Now it's just pain. I'm headstrong. Ugh, that sounds rough and dangerous. Jared says shade on Zach for wearing an A to Z Dallas shirt. Time for laundry day.
Look, I rep the brands. We're a bigger brand than just Nashville. So I got a lot of respect for our Dallas market and our Philly market and our film room market. We've put in blood, sweat, and tears of this company, and I'm going to show out. I'm a stubborn, but I'm a company man. So I rep the brands.
Jason says throwing shade at the Chargers for literally punking the Titans, picking a left tackle to fill a right tackle spot. I'm sure Alt feels just as upset. Yeah, I think that was interesting, right? You know, like the Chargers and Titans could have just like said, hey, you take this guy, we'll take that guy, because it feels, we need a left tackle, you need a right tackle. So why not you take this guy and we'll take the other? But just, Jim Harbaugh doing quirky things, I guess.
If they were back-to-back picks, maybe, but the Giants were the curveball in between that.
No, I'm saying like the Chargers could have taken Latham at 5, and then the Titans take Alt at 7.
Alt, the best tackle in the draft.
I know, but you're moving him over to the other side. I'm just saying,
best tackle in
it
the
is
draft.
Goofy, though. It is goofy to take the best tackle and play him in a spot that he hasn't played before. It is funny. It is funny. The irony I see is funny to me. Zach, what's your shade this week?
My shade. The results are in. And that's a lie. It's just not true. I was at the Nashville draft. I was at the Detroit draft. And the Detroit draft surprised me. It was well laid out. It was open. But there is no way in hell that broke the Nashville record. And I'll tell you why. There was no, where Nashville got its numbers was from the bars. Not only was the street filled all the way to Timbuktu, but the bars were full. They don't have any bars in Detroit. Hell, they don't have barely any restaurants. They do need some improvement. It wasn't the best city that I've ever been to. I don't know if I'll be back on my own accord, as I said. It was an enjoyable experience. I'd never been there. I checked that off. I've been to Detroit. I can say that. But the setup of being at both of those, and I'm not saying this because I'm Nashville biased. I'm obviously Nashville biased because I live there. I just experienced both of them, and one was not like the other. So I think the NFL inflated those numbers. A ton of different fans, a lot of Lions jerseys, a ton of Lions jerseys. More Lions jerseys than we didn't see many Titans jerseys. We saw for other teams' jerseys in Nashville because I felt like it's more of a destination. There were 80% Lions jerseys in Detroit, but there were not 700,000 people there.
Yeah, that was my thought, is that Nashville was more of a destination for the entire league, where Detroit's draft was a lot more Lions in hometown than previous drafts. It's like, and I'm not the Lions, it was the right time for them to host the draft, coming off of their run to the NFC Championship game, win the division, home playoff win, all that stuff, which I think they earned. And so I think
and the
Nashville, different entertainment value, I would say.
I'll add to that, the entertainment value. The problem with Detroit, and I've been to the last several drafts, they had like fan experience at Nissan Stadium where you could kick a field goal and throw footballs into nets. They had, they had basically food trucks in Detroit. Like, they didn't have the experience that was Nashville. And on top of it, they didn't have the bars on Broadway. The logistics weren't bad because it was all downtown, walking distance. They closed a bunch of roads and all that stuff, but not the same.
Yeah, I mean, what happens with Green Bay next year? Are they going to have it at Lambeau?
Well, that's what we were talking about, is that, I have to get an Airbnb now.
Yeah.
There are no hotels.
No, that's going to be really interesting. My shade, Zach, is on Men's Warehouse because I was in my brother's wedding on Friday, and he provided the shirts, the dress shirts for the groomsmen. And we get there Friday, and Men's Warehouse gave me, out of the package, a dirty white dress shirt. And this was discovered 2.5 hours before pictures began for the groomsmen. And so luckily one of the guys had a Tide to Go pin, so went to work on that, got the dirt out, but left the big old Tide to Go detergent circle. And so while I'm throwing shade at Men's Warehouse, I will give props to the Hermitage Hotel staff for quickly grabbing my shirt and doing a laundry run with just my shirt and getting it back in time 3 minutes before we had to be ready on that timeline. And hey, the good thing is, taking pictures can get kind of warm. Had a little slightly damp dress shirt out of the dryer that kept me cool through those pictures. So throwing shade at Men's Warehouse for selling a dirty shirt, but shout out Hermitage Hotel staff.
Was this reported to Men's Warehouse?
It hasn't yet, but I have an image. I have pictures of said dirt, and we'll make sure that they are aware.
They need to know.
Yeah. And Ocho, you're going to like the way you look. A hilarious pull from Ocho. Hilarious. Because we had to do some, and that was like, something's going to go wrong, right, on wedding day. The one thing was is my shirt going to be back in time for us to stay on track? So, yeah, but it worked. We got it all good.
There you go. Rectified.
All right. That'll do it for us on this Tuesday. Make sure you hit that like button before you head out on Facebook and on YouTube. We appreciate all of you guys for consuming the post-draft content. More to come throughout the day on A2Zsports.com and our social media. Buck Rising live on primetime, new start time at 7 p.m. Central, and be back tomorrow morning at 8. We'll catch you guys later. Appreciate it as always.
Adios.